Self-doubt affects basically everyone, including me, and apparently including Michelle Obama.
Every other moment, I feel self-doubt.
Having some self-doubt is good because otherwise we'd be too arrogant for anyone to want to be around us. But when we have so much self-doubt that it holds us back in life and stops us from going after what's most important to us, that's when it becomes a big problem. If this sounds like something you're struggling with right now, you're gonna want to stick around for this video because we are discussing how to beat self-doubt and build confidence using a simple 5-step method. There is a lot of non-straightforward woo-woo sounding advice out there on this topic that I find completely unhelpful. So I've made sure to make this video as straightforward and fluff-free as possible for us. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Audrey. I'm currently practicing as a therapist, and on this channel we discuss tools for improving our work lives, relationships, and overall mental health. Before we get into it, I think it would be useful to first point out that there is an important difference between confidence and self-esteem. Confidence is our belief in our ability to do something. Self-esteem goes hand in hand with confidence, but it's more so how we feel about ourselves, how we view ourselves. Do we feel that we're worthy and have value? This video is specifically on building confidence. If you would like a separate video on building self-esteem, I would love to make one for you. I just want to check first if that's even something that you'd be interested in seeing. So if it is, let me know in the comments and I will get started on that. Okay, let's tackle this beast of a topic of self-doubt. Deep down, we know that the real reason that we're not doing certain things that we really want to do, like make that next career move or start that business or put yourself out there more socially, is because we're afraid. And no matter how much we might want it, we still worry that we're not going to be good at it, we'll make a fool of ourselves, and we'll fail. And so we never get started. When it comes to self-doubt, it's less of an issue of you don't have the ability to do something, and it's more so an issue of you have a really strong inner critic that just persistently tells you that you can't. Apparently, the average person has 60,000 thoughts a day, and 75% of them are negative, and 95% of them are repetitive. Ugh. So it's no wonder that our brain jumps to, no, you won't be able to do that, as if it's on autopilot whenever we have an idea to try and pursue something. We're not going to be able to get rid of all 40,000 or however many negative thoughts we have a day. But what we can do is choose to give these thoughts less power and authority over us. And to be able to do this, the first thing we need to do is become aware of our self-doubtful thoughts. The way that I personally like to do this is whenever I notice that inner critic voice telling me, I can't do this, I then tell myself, I notice I'm telling myself I can't do this. And just by adding those few words to the beginning of that original inner critic thought, it creates distance between us and that thought. Us and our inner critic, because we are not our inner critic. We are so much more than that. And having this distance makes it so much easier to analyze that inner critic thought and choose whether or not we want to believe it. And with more practice, it's going to get much easier, and you're going to get a lot better at catching your inner critic in the moment instead of automatically believing what it's telling you. Now, there is a lot of toxic advice out there telling us to
just replace our negative thoughts with positive ones.
And I find this advice just completely unproductive. That's just not how it works. Let's say that we're at a stage in life where we want to make new friends, but we're doubtful. So we might be telling ourselves things like, I don't have the confidence to put myself out there. To immediately jump to, I do have the confidence to put myself out there, is unrealistic, and actually can be demotivating if you simply don't believe that statement. There needs to be some sort of in-between point. That in-between point is going to be step number 2, which is to challenge your inner critic. Challenging our inner critic doesn't mean telling ourselves the exact opposite of what our inner critic is saying. It just means gently questioning it. And there are 3 different ways that we can do this. And the first way is by asking ourselves, is there any evidence to prove that this thought is true, that we actually can't do it? I'm just gonna tell you the answer right now. No, there is no evidence. How could there be? How could you know that you can't do it if you haven't even done it yet? The second way is to ask ourselves, have I ever done anything in the past that has required me to grow in a similar way to what I'm aiming for right now? If you are a human that has interacted with other humans, there have definitely been times in the past where you have been required to stretch yourself socially, whether that be in school or just generally in your community. And we can use that as proof that if we could do it then, we can do it now. And the last way to challenge your inner critic is to tell yourself, I'm just gonna see if I can. I'm gonna do my best and see if I can figure this out. Rather than telling ourselves, I can, if we really don't believe it at this stage, telling ourselves, I'm gonna see if I can, feels much more realistic and motivating when we're full of self-doubt. At the end of the day, our inner critic is just trying to protect us. It's not trying to hold us back in life on purpose. It just doesn't want to see us fail, which is why it's telling us to not do this thing that could potentially lead to failure. Our inner critic means well, it's just trying to keep us safe, but also we don't want to let it lead us to playing it too safe, because then we're just going to remain doubtful and unconfident in ourselves. So that's where step 3 comes in, and that is to ask ourselves, what's the worst that could happen? What am I most afraid of? For example, if I put myself out there to try to make new friends. Once we identify our greatest fear about this thing, we can then ask ourselves, what would I do if this worst case scenario were to come true? How would I deal with it? How would I mitigate it? Okay, so let's say that we're scared that if we put ourselves out there to try to make new friends, we're gonna come off as awkward. We're gonna embarrass ourselves. No one's gonna like us, and then we're still not gonna have any friends at the end of it. Okay, how would we deal with this? First of all, if someone were to say this to me, I would probably tell them that they're probably not coming off as awkward as they would think. In the past, if anyone has ever told me that they're an awkward person, I've been in disbelief. I've just been like, what? Like, you don't come off as awkward at all. But okay, let's say that we are still really worried that we're gonna come off as awkward. There are a lot of resources out there now on how to talk to anyone and become better conversationalists. So if we do ever have a truly disastrous attempt at making a new friend, maybe that might mean going and reading up on some of these resources and learning some communication and conversation skills so that we can have a better chance at making a new friend the next time we put ourselves out there. Also, this person that we had that disastrous attempt with is probably not going to even remember it and probably not think that it was as bad as we thought it was. Preparing for the worst case scenario is a really effective way to beat self-doubt because it makes the possibility of failure seem less scary, and it makes us realize that even if the worst case scenario were to happen, it's still not the end of the world. Now, up until now, all the steps that we've discussed have been about changing our thoughts. And while changing our thoughts can help, it's not gonna do much to beat our self-doubt and build confidence unless we also take action, which is step number 4. Out of all the 5 steps in this video, taking action is by far the most important. We can sit at home and correct our thoughts and prepare for disaster all day, but if we're not also going out there and doing something to prove to ourselves that we can and prove our inner critic wrong, we're not gonna make much progress in becoming more confident. Doing the exact thing that we're doubting whether we'll be able to do is the only way that we're gonna beat self-doubt and become confident. And yes, this is probably gonna involve getting pretty uncomfortable and probably pretty anxious. I'm sorry to break it to you, but okay, let me try to paint this in a more positive light. For those of us who struggle with doubting ourselves and lacking confidence, we can sometimes look at people who seem confident and think like, how does it come so easy for them? Were they just born this way? But when we understand that confidence is actually built through action, we realize that it's probably not that this person was born confident and you were born doubting yourself. It probably means that this person just has more practice and experience than you in that specific thing, which is good news because it means that confidence isn't something that some people are born with and others aren't. It's a skill, and like any skill, with practice and with taking action, we can improve and get better. And there's actually a model for this. It's called the confidence competence loop, and it basically says that competence in something builds confidence, which in turn builds more competence, and it just creates this positive feedback loop. So for anyone who is anxious right now, knowing that they're gonna have to get uncomfortable if they want out of this, let me make it a bit easier for you. Let's make the first step that we take towards this thing that we're trying to pursue the smallest baby step we can imagine. Something that we can still do even if we're still feeling doubtful. So let's say we're working on being more confident to make new friends. Maybe we're not ready yet to go to a big social event and network, but maybe we could, the next time we go to a workout class, compliment someone on their outfit and see where the conversation goes from there. The first step should be something that's challenging enough that it still puts us out of our comfort zone, but that's not gonna make us freeze in fear. It's gotta still be realistic. And the more times that we can do something to prove to ourselves that we can talk to people and make new friends, the less scary it's gonna get and the better we're gonna get at it. And as a result, the more confident we're gonna become. If you struggle with self-doubt, you probably also don't stop to celebrate your accomplishments very often. You're probably more likely to tell yourself that you accomplished something by fluke, and then 2 minutes later, you're doubting whether or not you'll be able to accomplish the next step. Each step we take towards our goal and towards beating self-doubt is worth celebrating. And we can gain a lot from just taking a moment to acknowledge something that we've done well, even if it's the smallest baby step. My favorite way to do this is to each night write down 3 things that I did well that day. I can personally vouch for this exercise. I did this religiously when I was going through a period of pretty low confidence, and I can 100% say that this was the main thing that helped me to rebuild my confidence. I really recommend keeping a separate notebook or separate note in your phone or Notion page, whatever you would prefer, reserved just for writing down your wins. I call mine my wins journal. And the more nights that you do this exercise, the more evidence that you build up to prove your inner critic wrong and prove to yourself that you know what you're doing, you're good at this, and you can. I really hope that you found this video helpful and motivating to take a step towards doing that scary thing that you've been wanting to do. But in any case, as always, I hope you're doing well, and I appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Bye.